Hi, I'm Brandon Poe, founder of Poe Group Advisors and creator of the Accounting Practice Academy. You are listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast, where we talk about stuff in the accounting world. If you're looking to buy or sell a practice, we are the premier accounting practice intermediary firm in the industry. Check us out at pogroupadvisors.com. If you're a firm owner looking to build a more profitable practice while actually reducing owner hours, sign up for our practice management workshop, which only runs a few times per year. Learn more at accountingpracticeacademy.com. Welcome to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. I have a very exciting guest, and we're going to dive deep into a topic I've not really covered in this depth before. It's about advisory work. We have today as our guest Geni Whitehouse, who's a CPA, and you've got some other initials behind your name, CITP, CSPM, which I don't know what those mean, but we'll figure that out. She is a Basset Hound worshiper and keynote presenter. Yeah, all the pictures in the back there. Geni believes there is magic in the numbers and is on a mission to unlock that magic so business owners can apply it in creating the life of their dreams. She's an author and speaker who now divides her time between working as a winery consultant at Broke Markle, Davis and Company in the Napa Valley, and leading ITAlliance.com as president. She also writes, speaks, and tweets at evenandnerd.com. She's co-founder of Solve Services, a remote bookkeeping business for the wine industry, and is a level 5 advisor and coach at theimpactfuladvisor.com, where she teaches her fellow magicians how to apply the magic for the benefit of their clients. Welcome, Geni.
Thank you, Brandon. It's a pleasure to be here. And I am proud of you. You pronounced Broke Markle Davis correctly. It took me 3 years to figure out how to say that right. It's kind of like one of the wine brands they drink in Napa Valley, Gewürztraminer, which I couldn't pronounce either for a long time, but hopefully I'll make it.
Oh, that's a mouthful. Well, and your career, it seems like there's a lot of variety in your work, and you must do a lot of different things, and I'm sure that keeps you interested in all of these different spots that you're focusing on.
I never would have thought, Brandon, that this is where I'd end up. First of all, in Napa Valley. I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina. I don't have a Napa Valley accent. And I was an accountant. I mean, I went to school because I liked accounting and numbers. I didn't know what accounting really was, but I started in 7th grade with the goal of being a partner in a CPA firm. So I spent 15 years in various tax roles, starting with Deloitte and ending with a small local firm in Atlanta. And the day I made partner, I realized that's not what I was put here to do. And tax was not impactful enough for my clients. I wanted to make businesses better, and I wasn't doing that. It just didn't feel like it when I was in the tax role. And I knew as partner that I would be stuck in that role because there's always another tax return to file. And so I went into high tech to try to make the profession better that way through automation.
Wow. Okay. And so tell me, the IT Alliance. What is the IT Alliance?
It's an association of technology professionals. It started with the consulting reseller community, which is mid-market software selling and implementing partners that are partners with people like Sage and Acumatica and Microsoft Dynamics and those folks. And it has evolved to include, and also vendors were members, as were these implementers. And then we've included now the leaders in technology practices in the top 50 CPA firms. So the CIOs of those firms are members. And we've also added the CAS practice, client accounting service or client accounting and advisory service practice leaders in the top 100 accounting firms. So basically, we're bringing together multiple aspects of technology as they sort of connect to the accounting space. So mid-market accounting software deliverers, as well as the implementers and sales practice leads and owners of companies who do that. And then these people inside larger firms who are struggling to bridge sort of the technology gap as they apply it to client service.
Okay. Now, with your work with the Impactful Advisor, what is the sort of client size or range that is typical for that company?
So clients of mine or clients that my clients are working with?
Clients of yours.
So I'm working with accountants of every stripe who were trying to figure out how to deliver more services to their clients. And it's really, and again, you read my bio, but it's really based on my belief that advisory is about helping a client move forward in the direction of their dreams, an owner of a business. So it tends to be the clients that my trainees are working with tend to be not the top big companies, so more small business focused service delivery, but the services that you learn through my training are designed to serve companies of all sizes and in every industry. So the people that I work with are coming from both CPA firms, and I've had large groups of people inside an individual firm come and get individual training for that firm. And then I have public classes, which is appealing, interestingly enough, to the bookkeeping community. I have a lot of those folks going through to understand how can I provide a deeper level of service to my clients, because those folks tend to be really close to that client pain versus me in a tax role. I don't really see all the pain it takes to get to that financial statement. I only see it at the end of the year when I'm in a tax seat. So we're getting people from that. We're getting CAS practice folks, the client accounting service. Again, CAS can be CAS, CAAS. We're calling it a lot of different things, but those people inside firms of all sizes are looking to transition more into problem solving and help these clients move forward than they are in accounting for what's already happened. So that's what makes it exciting for me.
Yeah. Do you feel like the profession is turning a corner when it comes to this type of work? Do you feel like it's starting to head in the right direction?
Well, I've been speaking about advisory since 2000, 23 years, and I started when I was 4. But been beating this drum for a very long time. And at first I thought the technology was the thing we had to do, right? We need to automate, but we automated the same stuff and we still didn't talk to our clients in a way where they could leverage the information. We started talking about, instead of goobery accounting, now we're talking about goobery technology. And so we still had to take those tools and figure out how to make it meaningful to clients. And so I've been talking about it. And when I started, there weren't very many people talking about it. So we have a lot more voices talking, but still not telling people, okay, you should, but our profession still doesn't know what to do. And that's what I'm trying to deliver with the training that I have. I have 100 tools. I have 14 hours of video training, and it's really start here. Here's the first document. Here's some questions you should be asking. Here's what to do based on what they answer, and how to help them document what's really going on in the business so that they can see, as owners of companies, what they need to do differently. And that's really the shift that I'm trying to make, is we aren't experts in our clients' businesses. We are experts in analytics and process mapping and helping them document what they already intuitively know about their business, because they have some expertise that they brought to bear on it. I'm not going to ever be a winemaker. I don't know if you're shocked by that, Brandon, or not, but my frenzy in a box training that I had in Atlanta is not going to serve me well in high-end Napa Valley, where I live and where I work with wineries. But I have curiosity, as do most of my peers in accounting, about why do you do this and how does that happen and what is the process behind that and how do you price this stuff and all of that. And those questions that I bring to bear on that client are the value that I add. It's not me being an expert in how you make wine. I will never be that expert. And so that's how we have to think differently in order to make this transition to advisory. And then my focus when I come into that winery is not to show them how smart I am, because then I'm not going to get anywhere. It's to make them feel smarter by the kinds of questions I ask and by giving them tools to bring data behind the stuff that they already know. And that's a real opportunity for us because we have those skills.
Right. Do you feel like the clients, because my experience working with entrepreneurs has been that a lot of them assume that their accountant is going to give them the type of insight that you're just describing. And I would say the lion's share of accounting firms don't even touch on that unless, most of them don't touch on it. And I feel like And, we have a program too called Accounting Practice Academy, and we help. One of the big things that we focus on is pruning your practice to give yourself the capacity to even be able to entertain this type of work.
It's huge
And
because we don't have capacity right now. That's the
right,
first challenge we have to doing anything.
yeah,
This,
and that requires a bold decision by the owner of that firm to start eliminating things
yeah,
in order to create that capacity. And that's a scary
that's
thing.
scary.
Yeah, it's
That's
scary.
frightening. That's the biggest barrier. I mean, we have all these unhappy professionals right now that are overworked and overwhelmed and exhausted and doing stuff they really don't want to do, but they won't stop and get rid of some of this stuff. And so that's fantastic that you're making space. And then once they have the space, the stuff I'm teaching them is what to do with that now capacity, how you take that and really make an impact. Again, I keep saying impact, but that's why I branded my company that, because to me, that's why I became an accountant. I wanted to make a difference in an owner's life. And I wasn't doing that when I handed them a tax return.
Right.
So, that's part of the ship, but you got to stop doing this stuff and stop putting clients' needs ahead of our own needs, which is what we do. I took every client I could take when I had my own practice in Atlanta, and I'd work all the time and I wouldn't bill them because I knew they couldn't afford it. So I ended up with a terrific nonprofit at the end of the day, working all the time. I'm not making enough money. And I'm helping them because I care about them, but I got to pay the bills at the same time. So I ended up taking my practice to a small local firm in Atlanta, and that's where I gritted the practice and then made partner in that firm, at which point I left. But because I was doing tax and I was stuck in that tax seat as a tax, 15 years of tax experience, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go out to small businesses and consult on their accounting software, which is how I built my practice. And that's where you're really in the pain with them. And you can make a difference when you get the payroll to run on a Friday. You're a hero. You're not just telling them, well, your payroll's broken, I'll come back and see how you do, a year later or something.
Yeah.
So it's a very different game you play when you get in there with them and help them try to figure out how to do things.
Yeah, I would imagine there's plenty of demand for that. I wouldn't think there would be too much trouble filling up your calendar once you have the capacity to focus on that work.
That's the thing in this firm. So I joined this firm part-time in 2007. So I've been 16 years working with wineries, and my only job in the firm is advisory, which means I have capacity. Right now in California, every single tax return got extended through October 16th because we had natural disasters. So every return, that means every business return is due on the 16th of October. Every single payment, everything got delayed, which means if I've got an individual who's got a company, they're waiting until now to bring me their stuff. Then I got to do the individual and the corporate. So our whole environment of accountants are just overwhelmed and insane. I've got capacity even now to answer a question that comes in for advisory, or I can go sit with a client. So the firm had to carve out a role that was going to have capacity to do this all year. Because if I was, tied up with tax every January to April, you couldn't ask me a question, or I couldn't come out and train your teams on financial fluency, which is one of the things that I teach. I couldn't help you build the dashboard that shows you where your financial challenges are and all that stuff. So it takes somebody with the capacity to do the work. And that's very difficult for most firms because we're understaffed and the tax returns don't go away. So it's one of our challenges. So the fact that you're helping them create that capacity is a huge thing for the profession, but they've still got to do what you tell them to do, right? Which is the hard part.
Well, we just want them to dip their foot in the pool, just get a taste of really light advisory, and just have conversations with people and just whet your appetite for it. Because my experience has been, it doesn't have to be highly, highly complicated to deliver advisory services. It can be very, you have to think and you have to ask the right questions. I think the questions you mentioned, that's the key, right? It's not the answer, it's having the right questions.
It is. And the best, and I go out and do consulting on a regular basis. And one of the best things that I can hear from a client at the end of a consulting engagement, or when I've done a project, they bring me in to come up with to answer some question or help them address something. is you're not telling me something. I've had an owner say this, you're not telling me something I didn't already know. And I say, I know that because you're immersed in this. I'm not going to know better, but what I've given you is data to support what you already knew. And intuitively, and oftentimes it is, I need to hire somebody to replace me is often the answer for the owner, because I don't want to be here anymore. Or I need a GM who's on site because you want to be off doing something else. And so the answer, the solution is, and it comes from within. I don't tell them you need to get rid of yourself. I gather data and say, here's what your team is saying. They need a leader who's on site. And so he says, yeah, I know it's my problem. I should, and so they take action, but they know that there's a challenge. So it's us just investigating the situation and doing discovery, which a lot of my tools are around that, how to uncover what's really going on. And then bring the team on board to help you solve that issue that you can identify. And that's really fun when you can get in there and really see that things are moving in a completely different direction. It's very rewarding.
Well, it sounds like you're just helping that owner focus on the priorities and focus where they need to put their attention. And when you do that, they go, oh, well, I need to do this. And then they start doing it because they realize it's going to make a difference. Right.
That's right. And, and you're running a business, as am I, sometimes the chaos of everything that you have going on is just overwhelming to the point where you can't decide. And so we have tools and structures that help them just lay out what works, what doesn't work, and then their ideal outcome across 5 areas of the business. And it's just like a bingo card. It's a grid. And it's such a simple thing, but that conversation with the owner gives them tremendous comfort that now we've documented what they've been wrestling with across multiple aspects of what they're doing, and then lets them see their way more clearly to figure out what they do want to prioritize off that list. But oftentimes it's just mental chaos they're carrying around all the time, and they can't see their way through to a solution. But we just write down what they have in their head, and it makes a big difference.
Do you feel like this is maybe, if not the greatest, one of the greatest opportunities in the profession right now?
I think it's the, I've thought this for 20 years, so it's been a slow adoption stream, but the automation and the toolkits have advanced to the point where it's way easier than it used to be. I mean, having dashboards that are all over the place and having cloud solutions so I can do stuff remotely that I used to have to do online. I mean, I used to have to do live. We've got the capability now to deliver it in a much easier format in a different way. But also the people that are coming into the profession are coming in for different reasons with a different skill set. They're more comfortable in conversational environments like that. And people are evolving in different ways. So I think there's much more of a capacity to deliver these services, but there is still a tremendous amount of fear of stepping into a space where I don't know the answer and I can't reconcile to anything. I don't have same as last year. It's going to be different. So there's still a tremendous amount of fear because we have spent so much time becoming technical experts in the code sections and the FASBs and all that stuff. And to go into a place where I don't know what the client is going to need from me when I sit in front of them. And so that's why this methodology is so important, because I need the checklist, right? I'm an accountant. I need something to follow. And what I know is no matter what the thing is that's going to come out. So I facilitate a meeting. I don't know what I'm going to come out with at the other end, but I know that the process I'm going to follow is going to work no matter what. So I'm not driving towards a specific answer from that client. I'm driving to set up a framework that will give them the ability to deliver whatever the answer is that needs to come out. So my role is not to come up with the right answer. It's to create an environment where they can successfully discuss whatever's really going on in the company. And so that relieves a lot of the pressure from getting, the right spreadsheet answer like we're used to.
Do you feel like, you mentioned the profession, like the normal life in a CPA's existence is very based on like hanging your hat on something.
Yeah.
Something. Do you feel like maybe the profession has become too bureaucratic? Is that part of an issue? Do you feel like that's an issue with?
Well, I think it's been a traditional security focused, create documentation so I don't get sued profession. If you think about it, think about what an auditor does, the whole thing, which I never understood it. They only let me do an audit for 6 weeks and then they went, you need to go back to tax. but I had to get my CPA in North Carolina. I graduated from UNC and started with Deloitte in North Carolina, Hickory, North Carolina. And we had to do the audit, but all of your work is documenting what you've done in case you get sued, basically. And you have all this analytics that you do, and you never present it to the client.
If you own a CPA practice, you're no stranger to the grind. It's easy to get so buried in work that you lose sight of the bigger picture. Oftentimes, in order to improve, we need to change our point of view. Accounting Practice Academy by Poe Group Advisors gives you that fresh perspective, so you can achieve success on your terms. This virtual workshop gives you the tools and mindsets to grow your bottom line and make your firm less owner dependent. You'll use your firm's data to zoom out and see your challenges and opportunities with amazing clarity. Most APA members come to realize that pruning their clients and doing less will actually generate more income. Poe Group Advisors has sold hundreds of accounting practices. We know that the firms that are the easiest to operate are also the most valuable ones in the marketplace. APA is the only workshop built from that mergers and acquisitions perspective, which means our members build more valuable practices. Create a better practice for you and your employees to enjoy, or build it to sell. The choice is yours.
Have you looked at your practice the way a buyer would? It's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture when buried in the finer details. With the lessons within our latest book, How to Prepare Your CPA Firm for a Sale, you'll learn to build upon your firm's success and make your firm more enjoyable for you and your staff or a future buyer. Go to pogroupadvisors.com/prepare for your free copy.
And you might not even understand it. I mean, I think a lot of like I was an auditor. I was an auditor at EY, and I remember I had a professor who was he was a retired E&Y partner, was our audit professor. And so he had come up in a completely different era in the profession. And he came up in the time when there was no peer review. And he said, this profession, it used to be you used your judgment. And honestly, he felt like that was more valuable than all of these bureaucratic lists and documentation and things that people don't understand.
Yeah.
It's a top-down approach. And I just wonder if that influences people's comfort with doing something like advisory.
Well, it's very litigation focused. What we're doing on the audit is to protect, because there have been so many lawsuits, right? We have oversight, all these oversight committees looking at what we're doing, and the SEC filing and all this stuff. I mean, look at the lease provisions that came out. Yeah, I looked at that, and and I'm not an auditor, and I may not have understood it, but basically you're debiting and crediting a bunch of stuff, and the net result is zero. I mean, that's like most of accounting. But we're offsetting debt. We're doing assets and liabilities to offset, and what's the impact of that? It's supposed to be more transparent to the man on the street. There's no way that's more transparent.
It becomes less transparent. They're doing the opposite of what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and it's designed to cover somebody for something that I don't know, but that focus is just so right. It should be, what can I do that matters to an owner, to potential investors? Yes, but in a way that it can make normal sense to people, and you don't require a PhD to understand things.
Right.
And that's what my focus has been. And I think automation helps, but also communication skills and training really help a lot for us to break that down.
I feel like it's interesting what you said about kind of the younger people coming in the profession for different reasons, being more comfortable in this environment. I could imagine, because my experience is when a firm is growing in not just in the top line sense, but be evolving and challenging, and people's roles are able to evolve quickly. Yeah. It's more challenge, then retention becomes easier. The firm culture becomes better. The staff retention rates are higher. The ability to attract talent becomes easier. So,
and market value goes up for that firm as well. What you're seeing on the selling and merging side, if I've got a firm with motivated, connected, engaged people, it's going to have a heck of a lot more value than some of these other firms that are dying on the vine, pun intended for Napa Valley. But what young people want, which is what I wanted. I mean, they're not different from us, but I just didn't think I didn't have the right to deserve that kind of connection to clients until I had paid my 10 years of dues as a as a grunt, which they called us. I'm sure they did that at EY too. Well, I want to see that what I did matters.
Yeah.
And when I present a tax return, nobody gives a flip. I mean, my client does not go, yay, you gave me my taxes and I owe 50 grand, especially when they owed. But when I go out, I go out to a winery, I train the sales team, the people in a tasting room that are basically standing behind a bar, letting you taste the wine, how to move the needle forward in revenue. I show them, these are the things you can control as a person standing in this tasting room. And they come out going, oh my gosh, now I know what I can do tomorrow differently so that I can hit my own sales targets. That's engagement for them. But for me, it's like, yay. And then when I go into the winery, they go, yeah, you're that nerd who taught us how to do stuff. We love numbers now and things like that's huge. I mean, that's a reward that I get from just doing this work. And I get that every day, whether I'm working with accountants, everything that I'm doing now, I can see that it matters. And young people need that faster than we are providing it. When I put them in a chair and make them do tax returns for 90 hours a week or whatever we're still doing as a profession, there's no engagement there. There's no evidence that I've done anything for that client. But if I can call that client at the end of the return and say, I got a question for you. Where do you go to see if your business is on track, Mr. or Ms. Owner? And the owner goes, well, I can't tell you. And I say, I want to find out right now in this moment, can you see how you're doing? Where do you go to check? And they go, well, I go to my bank account. Okay, well, maybe we can do something better than that. Let's sit down and talk about what matters to you in your business and where you can go to see if you're on track, because that shouldn't be it. That's late and that's inconclusive about where you're going to be. Let's have a meeting after tax season and talk about that. That's what I'm just trying to get. If everybody in the profession would just ask a question like that, we could get involved in a way that we aren't currently doing.
Yeah. And are you surprised too at just how big of a gap you see? Some owners just don't have the they don't know the answer to those really simple questions. That's why this is not that hard, right? It's
not, but we assume that they speak the language that we speak. And part of what we've trained our clients as a community to expect is that we're going to be talked down to, and that our accountant is going to be a bad communicator. They're not going to be available for 6 to 9 months every year. They're going to charge us stuff after the fact. I mean, we've trained them to expect bad customer service and poor communication. So when we start just asking a question like that, we elevate ourselves dramatically above the rest of the profession. It's that simple, but we're afraid to ask the question because we don't know what we're going to do when they say, I go to the bank. I look at my bank account online every day, and that's how I see if I'm on track. And we don't know what to offer them other than that. So therefore, I'm not going to ask the question. So that's what I actually came into advisory because I signed up to sell software to accountants, an interactive dashboard called ACPAC CFO at the time, that let me move levers and show a client how they could improve cash flow. And I thought, this is nirvana. Every accountant on the planet is going to want to do this with this tool. And I would talk to the accountants and they would go, no, I don't want to have a conversation. Isn't there a report I can print? And I don't know what to do with this. If I say reduce AR days by 10 days and my client says, how do I do that? I don't know what to tell them. So I've had to go in search of training so that people would buy this software. And that's when I found the level 5 advisory that is what I now have the rights to. But we're not going to open a doorway if we don't know what happens after that, after we walk through the door, right? If we don't have some solutions in mind, we're afraid to open the dialogue. And that's where we avoid doing advisory. So we need something we can apply, whether it's, my stuff, your stuff. They need help in getting down that path. And that's what I think we're still missing. Not enough people know what it is we do when we say we're now an advisor.
And I've had this for a long time. I think a lot of people want to know, how do I do that? I can't get the work done that I have. I don't have the team that I need, and that's a big obstacle too. And
that's what you're helping them figure out, which I'm thrilled. I think we need to team up, Brandon, because that's the biggest barrier. But the people that come to me, once they see and gain comfort in what they can deliver, they will now go. I've had multiple people say, I just got rid of all my tax practice. They start with one and they see what's possible when you start asking these questions, and it elevates your value. You can bill more. You can stop doing 20 and do 2 or 3 for bigger they start, but you've got to take that first step, and that's where they need the help.
Have you ever had a client regret getting rid of the tax practice and doing this?
I have never met that person. Have you?
Nope.
No.
Nope. It's just like I ask people who've gone up on their fees, did you do too much?
Yeah, I wish I hadn't done that. I'm going to go back and charge $50 a return like I used to do in 1975 or whatever. Nobody ever goes back. And I had a practice that I took to a firm. They doubled my rates and not one client left. I'm like, well, I'm a stupid idiot. I should have raised my prices. But sometimes it takes being hit over the head with a 2x4 for us to get sense, So it doesn't have to be this hard. One of the opportunities, Brandon, is that so many people are not doing tax anymore that if you want to do tax, you could do a heck of a lot fewer of them and really raise your prices because people are getting out in droves.
Yeah.
And it is really hard. Like we're getting calls all the time and we can't take any more tax.
Yeah.
So if you have a good tax practice, and one of the things that the luxury that we have in this firm, and I didn't build it, is that we have a focused niche. We're only doing winery clients. We're only taking you. We can charge a different rate, but we can't take everybody. And so there aren't enough bookkeepers and there aren't enough tax people. So if that's where you want to be, then you should raise your prices because there aren't very many of you that do a great job.
I think accountants have more pricing power right now than they've ever had.
They do. We're in big demand and there's not enough new blood coming in. Yeah. One of the things that I'm seeing, Brandon, is that young people coming out of school are opening up a bookkeeping practice because the barrier to entry is light. They get to apply technology and immediately deal with clients. And, and nobody knows what good books are supposed to look like in many cases. So if you've got an accounting background and you do it, the technology is easy to get into. You can get training through some of the vendors and you can start a practice really pretty simply. And that's what they're choosing to do. I'm going to start my own business and I'm going to take this accounting knowledge and apply it in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen it and I'm seeing some really fast growth rates with those firms and we're starting to we sell a lot of cloud firms and we're starting to see more and more of these younger sort of entrepreneurial people that are doing what you're saying, they get 4, 5, 6 years into it and they're like, okay, I'm going to pivot and do something else. And
that's right. They don't do it for long and they have built something that is highly marketable.
Yeah.
And they're getting out and going to something else.
And they've learned a lot of skills too, right? They've learned how to run a business. They've learned how to collect money and set systems up and all of those good things.
That's right. And they've also made some great relationships and connections with many of these vendors and companies. And you also see a lot of them going into speaking and training other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a very different world.
Well, was it difficult for you to you were a partner? Tell me, I'm going to go back in time a little bit. Like when you left to go start doing this and focusing on this, was that a really difficult decision for you? Because as you've mentioned, it takes a lot of courage to get into this. Like, I'm always interested in hearing about people's transitions out of.
So, in 7th grade, I decided that I wanted to be a CPA. So I was good at math. I went to my math teacher and said, what do you do with math for a living? If you like numbers. She said one of two things, you either become a math teacher or you become a CPA. And I said, which one makes the most money? And she said CPA. And my dad sold tax books for CCH. So he was working with CPAs in firms all over, and we were in South Carolina. He was working with firms and going in and selling to CPAs. And in his mind, that was the best job you could have. That was a great thing. They had fancy offices, and came back and I would help update these books with new tax law changes as they came out. So CCHs had the research books and he was out selling those. So when she said that, I was like, well, my dad thinks those are pretty cool. And they make, so I said, that's what I'm going to be. So, I was laser focused on that from 7th grade on. And I had to get into a certain school so I could go to work for a big aid at the time. And everything I did was about making that happen. So then I get into Deloitte and it's a struggle because I start getting reviews that say I'm a bad communicator, Brandon, and everything on my first evaluation was an F and it was, A to F. And the partner that reviewed me said, because of your poor communication skills, you failed at everything you do. And your voice tends to be a whine.
Rough.
Yeah. And I came out of that just going, and he didn't give me anything to do about it. I was just devastated here, you know, in my first kind of review, and I'm in the firm, I finally get in, but I was whiny because I was so lacking in confidence. I would deliver something and go, here it is. I know you're going to hate it. I'm going to get 95 negative review notes about what I've delivered every day. That's all I got. So by the end of that, I'm pretty whiny, which is probably why I'm in the wine industry today. The whiny voice. But I mean, it's devastating. But I kept going and I kept working harder and longer and trying to make it work. And I left Deloitte after 4.5 years because I knew I wasn't on the partner track. So I went to corporate tax, which was better, which actually a lot better because I could apply the technology training that I got. So I majored in accounting and programming. So I had a bunch of tech interests and stuff. So the technology stuff actually helped me. I did a bunch of macros and things. Corporate tax, then went back from there and ended up building my own practice around Peachtree software. So that's when I had my own practice. I was doing the accounting, the tax, and the software support, but meeting with small businesses. And I was really good at that, helping them understand it and use the technology to do what they were trying to do. And then that's when I built the practice and took it to a firm. But then I had this tax background and I had all these clients on the technology, and I would go out during the day and do the software stuff and help them fix their payroll or whatever's going on with Peachtree. And then I'd come back and have to do the tax work. And I was working all the time to be average at tax. I was still getting review notes, but I was growing the practice, and they saw that there was potential there for the work that I was bringing in. But when they made me partner, it's the first time in 15 years, so 15 years of doing this stuff and trying to be good at tax, when I went, this means I'm stuck here. I mean, I'm partner. This is where I was trying to get to. And now I was like, I don't really like this. It was the first time I realized or even thought about that because I was so focused on getting to the top of the hill.
Yeah.
That once I got there, I looked around and went, the view sucks from here. You know, I don't like what I'm going to be doing. And they see me as a tax partner, even though this other stuff is where I get the reward. So the night they told me I was going to make partner, I went home and just woke up and went, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave and I'm going to take some clients. So I'm going to go to work for one of our clients that had a technology that was a technology implementer for project management software. They were a reseller of project management software. And they would take me to do, first of all, I thought I was going to be doing the accounting for them more full time, but they took me to be a trainer because there's a lot of numbers related to planning a project, and they had construction clients. And so I ended up going to them, and I'm going to take this client, I'm going to do this. And I basically wrote down what I was going to do and went in and presented it. And they were floored. So, but they said, okay. And then we worked it out. They kept the clients. I went and did this work. But that was when I started doing teaching, when I discovered this is what I really like to do, and more communication focused. And then that led me into other tech company roles and things like that. But it was, and I did not feel, it was just a moment of absolute clarity, and I don't know where it came from, but I mean, your whole life is built to do something. All of a sudden you're going, well, that's just the wrong thing. Yeah. But when I walked out of that office that next morning, it was like the weight of the world lifted from my shoulders. I didn't realize how hard I had to fight to try to be who I needed to be in that role until I walked away. And I think
it's funny. They said your communication wasn't good. And now that's kind of where you.
Well, no, that's the irony of it.
Yeah,
that's the irony of it. And then I went set about, and you know what motivated it? I never wanted to be a speaker, but I was so passionate that I didn't want anybody else to suffer like I had for those 15 years that I went, I need to get on the road and talk about this because I know there are more people like me. And I also know there are ways that they can be more successful. The people who aren't unhappy as tax people can be far more successful if they can leverage technology and be better at communicating. So I had that passion to get people that weren't happy out, but also to make the good people have more recognition for what they were actually delivering, and also help more clients. I wanted clients to have access to more help because they need us desperately, and we're just not delivering.
I mean, they need it. I had a gentleman I was in EO with. I've been in EO since 2018, and I saw someone, a young person, go bankrupt, and I'm certain that if he had better cost information, he could have turned it around. I don't know that he would have, but I think he could have had a chance. But he was like one of these people looking at the bank account and, not realizing what's happening, that what's happening is unsustainable. And, eventually the music stopped and, he went through bankruptcy. So, yeah. So, I mean, clients need this information. They need it.
That's what what you said about my belief. There really is magic in them. I love numbers, but they're gobbledygook to most people who are not immersed in it. And we don't make it better for them. So that's what's fun when I can break it down to the point where that frontline worker knows what they need to do differently tomorrow to achieve the business goals that the owner's trying to achieve, and it matters to them. That's huge. And that's what we need in companies today. Somehow we assume that if somebody has moved up through a corporation, they have acquired knowledge of financial statements. And that is so not true. Nobody ever explains it. We all just kind of go, and I think this happens all the way up to the CEO level. We all look at a financial and go, oh yeah, I get it now. And nobody does. And it just keeps moving up. And we keep saying, oh yeah, I understand it. And nobody really understands anything about how what they do connects to what we're trying to drive in the financial statements. And so I think there's a huge opportunity for us, but we've got to take the time to communicate around this stuff and also listen deeply to what those people are trying to achieve.
Right. Well, this has been just a great conversation. I got a couple more questions and I can let you go, Geni.
Okay,
so, books. I always like to find out from my guests, like what book recommendations they have. Anything that you're reading now?
I'm just reading one that I attended the BotKeeper AI Unchained conference last week, and they shared a book called The Algorithmic Leader. And it is a fascinating book about how the algorithms run companies. And if we're going to lead in this environment, we need to look at what those algorithms are doing and how to be a leader in that environment. It's a really fascinating. Let's see if I can find the name of I've got it on Audible and I'm listening to it. And The Algorithmic Leader by Mike Walsh. And I think it's a really cool and exciting book. So it's one of the new ones. I read these things all the time. I try to keep up with all the things going on. You can't, read enough these days because things are happening so fast. But that was an interesting view of what we're facing in this new world we're in.
Last question. What are you most excited about for this profession?
I'm really excited about leveraging the tools that we have. And I think AI is going to free us from a lot of the crappy stuff we didn't want to do anyway. I mean, we've already seen it. I mean, QuickBooks has had AI stuff where it's doing the bank statement matching of expenses that come in to the chart of accounts and all kinds of stuff. And I think just leveraging that in new and exciting ways is going to give us some more capacity, provided we are willing to think differently about what our role is going to be. And if we cling to that old stuff, we're going to miss the boat. Yeah, I agree. Awesome. Well, we're going to put some links up for people to connect with you. Okay. What's the easiest way? Is it LinkedIn? What's your most? LinkedIn works great. Yeah, you can reach me, Geni Whitehouse, Geni Whitehouse on LinkedIn. You can reach out on my website, The Impactful Advisor. There's a place where you can comment or contact me. Or even, I got 95 different website brands, Brandon. But you can contact me through there, and then I'll respond. But I'd love to hear from people.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Geni.
Okay, thank you, Brandon, for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. If you like what you heard today, please follow us so that you can get updates when new episodes are released, and share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. You can also follow Poe Group Advisors on social media. Please visit our website for more information at pogroupadvisors.com.